Hello and welcome back. I am Max and this is Uniquely Made. As some of you may remember, I built a CNC milling machine in my previous videos and used it to make most of my projects. Well, that worked well enough. I got somewhat tired recently of programming the parts and waiting around for them to finish, and I would much rather have a more manual approach to things. So I sold the CNC machine and for that money bought a mini milling machine and a small lathe. The brand of my specific mini milling machine is Artec, but this machine is sold under a million different names. It is one of like 5 different designs from China that all come in this sort of form factor with just different sets of features. You may ask, why did I choose this one specifically? And the main reason is that this one was offered used to me at a decent price, and so I bought it. The construction of this machine is all cast metal. This makes it surprisingly heavy and rigid for a machine of this form factor. Keep in mind, it is obviously nowhere near as rigid as one of the big boys. It also has locking features in all of the ways. And as you can see, these have already broken. There's one on the Z-axis and one locking mechanism for the Z-axis. They've all broken. This is partially because of old age, so these parts are now very brittle, and because they can get in the way of other ways, and then if you don't pay attention, they break off. They were also not as easy to adjust as I would like them to, so as a first project on this small lathe, I would like to replace all of them with nice brass knobs. So here we are at my new lathe. It is a Smart & Brown made in London, and as far as I can tell, this is way older than I am. This is also made from cast iron. Therefore, it should be rigid enough for all the things that I would want it to do, which is machining mostly aluminium, brass, and maybe some mild steel. This machine came with 3 different chucks, 2 3-jaw chucks and 1 4-jaw chucks. Since I'm going to do the entire part in one operation, I'm going to choose the 3-jaw chuck just for ease of use. I got this nice piece of brass, and that's going to be ideal to get all 4 screws out of this.
I start the machining process by using a high-speed steel cutter to face off the part. My lathe only has 3 speed settings: slow, medium and high, and for softer materials like aluminium and brass, I usually use the medium setting for at least the roughing operations. You can see that the chips are coming off quite nicely. After facing, I start by taking off some material of the diameter to make the part truly concentric. Here I'm taking off about 2 mm of the diameter. The most I can do with this lathe is about 3 mm. Afterwards, I have to take this first feature down to the final dimension for thread cutting, which for an M6 screw is about 5.8–5.9 mm.
Alright, time to cut the thread.
Before doing that, I used a file to create a small chamfer. The thread cutting die I'm using for this is an M6, and it is part of one of those sets of super cheap thread cutters that are for internal and external diameters. And it is an absolute pain to use. I actually had to use the Dremel with a grinding attachment to resharpen the surfaces, because the burrs that were left by the factory actually inhibited the tool from even cutting the threads, and it was just rubbing on the bronze. And here my camera decided to focus on the background. And if I had an knurling tool, this would be the point to use it. So now it's time to cut the surface that is actually going to be the diameter of the thumbscrew, and I'm going for about 20 mm here. After a quick deburr, it is time to cut off the part. I started, however, with cutting a bit of a relief cut behind the thread to make sure that the screw can be fully seated, and then I went for parting off the part. I also used the file there to give a bit of a chamfer to the backside edge of the part. And there we have it. Now all that's left to do is to remove this little nub on the back, and I'm going to do that using my homemade disc sander. I got a 240 grit disc on there, and that is making quick work of that little nub.
And there we have it, the finished part. If I'd had a knurling tool, I would have knurled the outside, of course, for better grip. But let's see if it works anyway. So you're seeing the underside of the X carriage, and this is where the lock and bolt for that axis is. So it threads in nicely. And yeah, I obviously can't put that much force on it because smart me kind of polished the outside, so it's quite slippery. But let's see. So it kind of works. I would have liked it to be tighter, but I guess for the amount of forces that this is going to see on this small machine, it's going to be okay. I really would have liked to have the knurls on the outside of the thumb screw, but as it is, I think it's going to be good enough. That's all I have for you today. I hope you enjoyed it. It was a very short and easy project, and mainly just for me to get used to these machines and to get back into making videos. If you have any suggestions for future projects, leave them down below. Thank you for watching and have a great day.